Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, my custom is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things very expensive. What an expensive and priceless commodity. And Rand is coming to share that with us today. And so we want to honor him because time, as I mentioned to you, how one relates to time. What is your relationship with time? How do you respect time? How do you honor time? All of those things will expose who you are in relations to time. The other is the journey. And Rand came to share some of that.
Ken, it's a pleasure to be with you.
It's an honor, man. As I mentioned to you on the onset, this question I ask all the guests, and I ask them because I want my listeners to to understand a few things, that this is not just about them, but it's also about us together. How do you serve mankind?
Since I was 14 or 13, I've had a very strong sense of being of service. And that's manifested itself in routinely, consistently. Throughout my life, in roles I've stepped up for, responsibilities I've taken on, as growing up, becoming an adult, raising my children, serving our local community as a scoutmaster, as a little league coach, serving on many boards over, decades now. I think that we have a role and responsibility to make this world a better place. Sometimes that has to do with our relationships with others, but sometimes it has to do with the caring for Mother Nature, animals and plants and so on. So I've been very dedicated to that and continue to be. This is a non-ending thing. I'm hoping my last breath will be in that same flavor. Part of it is recently I've published a book called Thriving: How to Create a Healthier, Happier, and More Prosperous Life. And I'm just hoping that the whole purpose of this is to engage people in the possibilities of moving forward in life and being on a pathway to thriving and giving your best self. Leashing yourself from the things that are holding you back, to discover who you are in that way, and to figure out your voice as opposed to the voices that you've probably been hearing for a long time, maybe from mother or father, or maybe some boss or somebody who told you things that don't really reflect who you are. Maybe they didn't originally, but they don't anymore, certainly now. And so you have to discover that new self. And so this book, Thriving, is really directed towards people who wanna step forward.
I love that. I worked in a skilled nursing facility at the end of my career in corporate America. And I have seen with my own eyes and listened to individuals that are in their 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that didn't have a clue as to who they were. And so the fact that you have written this book to help those that are interested in moving through and living a prosperous life, guys, I have someone with a book, and we're going to talk about Thriving. We'll talk about his book. We'll talk about where it came from and how it came about. But I want to welcome you guys to the podcast so that you can enjoy this journey as we learn from Rand wisdom, insights as he walked through his life. One of the customs that we do here, Rand, is to visit some of the spaces. I tell people that we reside for a period of time. And at each one of those junctures, if you will, we are being programmed. We're being programmed by family, religion, educational system, corporate America, society as a whole, family traditions. All of these things are trying to program you and I, and they do. And the journey is to discover that we've been programmed and start to deal with peeling away and dismantling all of those programs. Invite us to your family unit as to What was it like? And I tell people that this family unit is a bunch of strangers, mom and dad. You really don't know mom and dad. We have siblings, also strangers, and we have you. And mom and dad, however, they are their perception of the world based on their trauma. They are now going to input data into you. How was your family like?
Well, what you just said, Ken, is I couldn't agree with you more. This idea that we are programmed and there's a chance to reprogram or
Yeah.
maybe determine our own programming is a very powerful thing. I am very fortunate to have selected the parents I did. My parents are both alive. Dad is just turned 102. Mom is
Wow.
98. They're both very amazing people, very different. And I
Yeah.
benefited from that difference. My father is a very disciplined person, a very strong moral compass, is very social, a very extroverted person, and is very committed to helping other people. And his whole life has been just proof of that. And I took away, I've learned so much about those things from him. And I have deep regard, deep respect for him based on those things. My mother is very intelligent. She's a scientist. She was trained as a bacteriologist. She has a love for nature and animals. She loves reading. I started reading very young, and I continue to read. I'm always reading. Um, she taught me to kind of have fun by
Yeah.
playing games. Dad did not play games, but mom did, and she taught me to play tennis, for example, and
Yeah.
so on. And so I am the product of both of these amazing parents, and I was wise enough, maybe fortunate enough, to pick, I think, the best parts of both of them to kind of get on a road to
Yeah.
me as a foundational set of steps for me to then to add more ingredients of who I was and what I wanted to be doing on this planet.
What a powerful foundation, Rand, to receive from mom and dad, to be able to build precept upon precept, block upon block. You gain both powerful things from mom and dad. Reading, one very important. Spending time with nature, very important. These are all teachers, if you will.
Yeah.
Reading, you will learn a lot. Nature, one of the best teachers on this planet. And then you have from your dad, you learn the fundamentals that is necessary for one to become a disciple. That is discipline. One must become disciplined. And as you incorporate your discipline with the knowledge from the other teachers, as I said, nature and reading and all these things, what a foundation. So here is this young man within this unit and observing all of this powerful stuff, playing important.
Well, I feel very fortunate that I've always been a happy person. And
Yeah.
this is something that is a bit of a choice. Abraham Lincoln said, "We're about as happy as we choose to be." And I see that with my son also. So it just, I think from a very early age, I would be singing. I would be, smiling. I would be being a little bit in awe of something and be willing to just let that be, just engage and embrace that. I also, much as I've said some amazingly good and things that I believe very fundamentally about my parents, it wasn't as if there weren't some difficulties. In my book, I talk about adverse childhood experiences, ACE. And it's a very simple little test. It's 10 questions. You answer yes or no. Did any of these things happen to you before you were age 18? And they range from, did you go to bed hungry? Is one or both your parents absent? Was there abuse, verbal, physical, sexual abuse? Was there alcoholism or drug things going on as you were growing up. And I scored a 3. There are a couple of very powerful, important things about this ACE test. One is that the data now shows that if you score a 4 or more, the chance of you having lifelong mental or physical problems is like 80%.
Wow.
I scored a 3. So just under that threshold. I'm very aware what those 3 are. The other thing that's very interesting is that people with an ACE score turn into dandelions or orchids. A dandelion can pop up without any water in the crack in the sidewalk, whereas the orchid with little puff of wind blows over and collapses. Well, I'm a dandelion, and I don't know where that came from. I don't entirely know. I think even though my sister is an amazingly terrific person, she is an orchid, and continues to have some challenges with I think both my parents. I was able to, for all these different reasons, move forward and embrace the possibility of me learning from my mistakes, forgiving my father especially for things that he did, and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of years for me to get to the point where I could say the kinds of things I did about him. Mom has always been a joy. There's never been a difficult time with her. So I think, and I talk in the book about 2 kinds of strength. One is strong like a piece of oak, which is rigid but very strong. That's my father. The other kind of strength is what I call the willow branch strength, where you're flexible, and that's my mom. As I've grown and matured, I'm much more strong like a willow branch, which also allows me to navigate through the inevitable changes that are going on in the world and in my own personal life.
Yeah, it's some of the reasons why I ask these questions, Rand, is to excavate from the individual the genesis of our trauma. Our trauma has a genesis that begins, and when it takes place, it begins to formulate it. It gave birth to us, if you will. It gave birth to our perception as to how we form relationships. It gives birth to some of the decisions that we make as an individual, because now, because of this particular trauma, we need to get into certain modes, survival, and cause to survive.
Yeah.
And we do that for many years. I had suffered some abuse as well from family, my mom and dad, and I actually didn't talk to them for many years, even as a kid. And I remember as an adult having to go face them and asking for forgiveness and stuff like that when my life began to turn around when I did that. So I want those that are listening to understand that we're all traumatized. Trauma, there's a genesis of your trauma. But that's okay. You can still change, you can still heal. Trauma is stored emotions that when one covers it, because it's hiding, when you discover it, you will obtain your freedom. So here you are, you have experienced some trauma in your life. And what was your relationship like towards the outside world, Rand? Friends, family? What was that language like towards others?
Well, partly because of my personality, I've always had friends. And I've been a person that other friends came to and told me something was going on and asked for advice. I remember this very, very clearly in high school, and going on for the rest of my life. People would say, "Can I share something with you that I haven't told very many people about, and I'd really appreciate your thoughts and your counsel about this." That puts me in a place of not burden, but it draws me closer to these people, and it allows me to be more vulnerable with them It's a
Yeah.
pathway that's so important in building a deep and enduring relationship. And it gives me great respect that people would say those things to me and be very sincere about it. And you know, when you're speaking with somebody else about something that's important to them, you need to use your words very carefully.
Yeah.
You need to communicate with the deepest and best intention to really be of help to them, and not just be telling your story again and really kind of boring them and not
Yeah.
helping.
Let me
So,
ask you a question,
mm,
Rand,
mm,
because you had said on the onset that you were in 14 around that time when you knew that you would be a servant. You'd start serving. Let me ask you this.
mm,
What did you think they saw when they were
mm,
coming to you, all of
mm.
these friends, the outsiders? What did you think they saw in you that made them come?
That wasn't something I engaged with them at the time. It's only something I've looked back
Yeah.
years later and tried to assemble the answer to that. I think it's a combination of things. One is they knew I would be honest. There's a
Yeah.
certain amount of deep integrity about the way I handle myself and how I engage with others. So there's an honesty and integrity, but also a lot of being very conscientious, very dependable.
Yeah.
People, when I say I will do something, it will happen. I
Yeah.
will do it. You know, invariably, as people age, they begin to be a little more forgetful. Maybe their habits haven't really helped them. But I review the day every day and think, I said I would do something. I would follow through with this person, and then I do.
Yeah.
So I also have, very fortunately, a very good memory. So I process that way. And I think that those things people see very quickly. It's a very
Yeah.
almost instantaneous sense. I also show up with a lot of smiling.
Yeah.
I'm open. I'm available. Happily so.
Yeah. I think also that our gifts, our skill set, if you will, the gift that we have, I believe it has a degree of magnetism to, or energy, if you will, to pull people towards us, to cause them to come.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
believe that,
Hmm.
and you see that in you at a young age. And
Hmm.
now, what happens as we go through our journey and unpack all the trauma that we've been through, we then later on in life we will revert back to that young individual. But we have learned how to, we have become more skillful with the use of our gifts as we go through our journey. So here you are, this young man, people are coming to him early. You're looking towards going to college, um, to begin to step out on your own, as they say. What was your mindset then, and when you were looking towards college, if you went?
So my mother went to the University of California, Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
originally, and it was huge. She would tell these stories about the professor on day one would say, "Look around. I'm going to fail half the class within the first 2 weeks because the class is too big." This was in the post World War II era when all the GIs were returning home. And she
Yeah.
said it was horrible. So she
Yeah.
actually finished her degree at the University of New Mexico. And so that was a very powerful message for me about picking a college based on that. Meanwhile, my father said education is absolutely critical. There was no doubt my sister and I would be going on to college. And he said, I will help you. I will give each of you $5,000 for college. Well, even back then, that was not enough to
Yeah.
pay the full freight, at least for a private school. Those big anchoring elements were very central in my decision making. Now, I was an excellent student, and I had many choices. Back when I was applying to college, people were only applying to 3 or maybe 5 colleges or universities. I was accepted at everywhere I applied, but the University of Bridgeport offered me a free ride and no tuition. I liked the campus. It was 5 hours away from where my parents lived, so I could hitchhike home. I could get home for important, days or holidays or vacations. So I went there. I say this hopefully in the kindest way. It was a school kind of for underachievers, and I became when I went to office hours with a professor, they were so delighted that somebody would actually come to their office hours, and they'd always say, "Oh, if you're interested in that question, here, let me give you 5 books that you can you don't have to return them, just to keep them." I became chairman of the student advisory committee for the dean of arts and sciences. I was a resident advisor at the dorms. I was the head math tutor. I chose mathematics and psychology to major in because I was really good at math, but also because psychology, I knew this is the world. The more I could understand about psychology, the more I could understand the world and how people were behaving. And both those things have stood me in really great shape. I later got my master's in business administration from Stanford. Keys to the doors were being opened by having that kind of education.
That is awesome, man. And as you were there and receiving that education and all the data that you were studying, psychology is, of course, you mentioned. Um, how did that started affecting you? Because it has to have some impact as you're bringing all of this new info, if you will, into your being, especially the part of the psychology and learning about human behavior and all the different things, how we tick. How did it start to influence you or began to change you, probe you? What did it do to you, bringing all of this data to yourself?
Well, on the math side, because I was the number one math student, it just infused me with a sense of self-confidence that I had a brain that was pretty good, and I was also willing to work hard to study and solve problems, and so that was a really strong anchoring thing. Professors were always eager to and were happy that I could solve a problem that maybe for years somebody had not been able to solve. The psychology is a very different avenue. My senior thesis for the degree in psychology was health and organizations, values, assumptions, and directions. And that propelled me to think about going to get my master's in business administration with a focus in organizational behavior. That changed actually after the first course in the MBA program, because they were talking about things in a very different way, and I said, this is actually not for me. And I shifted to policy analysis. It got me in this way of thinking about people and life and relationships that I use sort of automatically, almost unconsciously, all of the time.
Yeah, because it's been programmed into you and you've seen the results. As you're there and you're now, you're on your own, if you will, as they say, and you're making your life and you're going forward in your life. As you're moving and you're being a part of all of these groups and serving and math and all the different things. What was your life like in the quiet moments when?
Marvelous. I continue to test. It surprises a lot of people. Continue to test as an introvert. Now, the
Hmm.
technical definition of an introvert is not whether you're shy or social. It's a question of how do you recharge. And an
Yeah.
introvert recharges by being alone.
Yeah.
An extrovert recharges by being, having more social stuff.
Yes.
And I am very social. I like, it's taken a long time, but I like meeting people. I like doing what you're doing, is getting to know people with, good questions, and listening carefully and asking a follow-on question, just like you're doing, Ken. It's a lot of fun, but the time alone is precious to me. I
Yeah.
spend time alone every day. Sometimes it's out in nature. I'm taking a walk. I sometimes go with somebody else, with my wife or somebody else, but I need to spend time by myself. And when I'm in nature, I am very close. It's a very spiritual place for me because I can be humble, which is good for me. Because even though I
Hmm.
have high self-esteem, I realize I'm a little guy. I'm a little graying speck of sand in
Yeah.
this universe, and I'm also filled with awe of the majesty, the amazing things that Mother Nature has done. The plants and the animals and the bugs, the unfolding of
Yeah.
nature is a great thing. I spend time alone at my desk, also just reviewing. I'm very organized. It's one of my great things. I spend time thinking about what my day is going to be about. I do that the night before, so I have a
Yeah.
plan for the day. If I need to get up early, or schedule things, put them in a certain order, I know what the most important things are that I need to do that day, and I get them done. Where the things that are nice to do that day, but maybe they roll into the next day. I have a daily plan, I have a weekly plan, I have a monthly plan, and I have the annual plan. And these are invaluable to me to staying on course with what I think is my mission,
Yeah.
achieving my purpose.
Yeah. And as you are bringing in all of these things, Rand, in your life as a young man and stuff like that, how did you, what did service look like when you were not serving within the school system or the educational system? What did serving look like for Rand while he was there, growing, getting older, getting more responsible, as they say, becoming an adult and all the different things, adulting. So how were you expressing your?
Well, in some cases, I got the tap on the shoulder. Would you be willing to do something? Would you be willing to join this board of directors? Would you be willing to be chairman of the investment committee for our endowment fund? Would you, I looked around, seeing the world with fresh eyes. I saw here in the great town that we live in, Mill Valley, a terrific Boy Scout troop, and I
Mhm.
realized that it was well run. There were 80 scouts from age 12 to turning 18, and they were doing interesting things. Was not a Boy Scout growing up, so I thought this is really these are young lads
Yeah.
who could really benefit by having a stable, caring person who has energy, who has vitality, who is somebody they can talk to, somebody
Yeah.
who can encourage them, who can adjust the bar, maybe up or down, so that they can be successful. And so, I spent 5 years as a scoutmaster. I was a little league coach. I look for things where I think I can add value, something I can contribute. In some cases, I don't know much about it, but I'm willing to learn. I bring a lot of energy. I spend time thinking about what will make this good and helpful and valuable. I'm a roll up your sleeves environmentalist. So the board thing is one thing, but actually going and working on projects. My wife and I go to our local marsh and remove non-native invasives, and so it's being of service in that way, and it's very affirming. It's very actually joyful to do it. Sometimes the feedback, especially I can remember in the Little League situation where the parents were difficult. It was very humbling. You know, if we won only half our games, there would be parents very upset. If I decided to play a certain player in a position and his parents didn't want him to play in that position, they would give me some very negative feedback. And I said,
Yeah,
look, if our team for the year ended up losing as many games as we won, there's not going to be a trophy.
yeah,
What we're going to do is we're going to sign the baseballs. Every player on the team will sign the baseball, and everybody will walk away with a signed baseball that you can go and put on your shelf. And remember the year, remember how you grew, and the skills you obtained, the camaraderie. What you learned from losing a game, how you felt when you did well, you performed well, you made a great play, and that's the baseball will remind you. The trophy is not going to be, and a lot of parents didn't like that. So I had to really check myself and say, am I just being a difficult guy, or
yeah.
am I following a set of principles I really genuinely believe in? And I said, I genuinely believe in these. So I just have to have broad shoulders and take that criticism.
Yeah, it's part of the course, if you will. If you believe in what you're doing, it's just part of the course. And if you do not have objections,
Yeah.
there's no way you're going to grow. I don't
Yeah.
know. There's always that tug, and when it comes to growing, friction is not a bad thing sometimes, you know. And so here you are getting a chance to engage with the parents. The parents are always the difficult ones in some cases, but those boys, I'm sure, were those type stuff were valuable to them in the long run, which of some of
Yeah.
those principles that you taught them that mom and dad didn't understand, that a trophy would never bring them.
Well, I think being able to articulate what the principle was, both to
Yeah,
the scouts or the little league players, and also to their parents, helped a lot. And I had to think about what the principle was. Sometimes you just do things as somewhat automatically. It's just you say it's the right thing to do. But
yeah,
if you need to be able to sometimes explain it to someone else and find the right words and the right framing to make it understandable. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to buy in and agree, but at least they can understand what it is you're talking about. And so I did a lot of that too.
yeah. And as you are moving through your life, Rand, what were some of those difficult times in your life? Because we all have those times that comes to expand us, if you will. And incidents and situation arises. I tell people to give us the opportunity to grow up, but we don't see it as that. We see it as a painful situation. But when we look back at
Yeah.
times that elevated us to become a better individual in many ways,
Yeah.
introduce us or invite us to some of those times in your life when you had some difficulties, and more importantly, Rand, what tools did you bring into your life to help you to navigate through them? How did you find your way out?
Well, I think I can focus on two really important things that have been part of my life. One is back to my father. It was kind of like old bull, young bull. Here I was
Hmm?
emerging. I had my own company. I was doing all kinds of things. I had two marvelous kids. I had a fantastic wife, and but my father had his own ideas of things. And there was a period of time that lasted the better part of 20 years where
Hmm.
the relationship with him was difficult. Partly it's a generational thing where he would not express his pride in me, or would not be very affectionate, or not use
Yeah.
words like love. So I did a lot of reading about that father-son relationships, and at one point it got so bad that I had to seek some advice. I went to a friend who is a psychologist, And I said, can we have a cup of coffee together? There's something I want to talk to you about. And he said, you want to talk about your father? And I said, yes, yes, thank you. And so he heard the latest version, the latest chapter in this ongoing saga, and he said, here's what I'd recommend to you. Write a letter to the father you wish you had, the father you deserve, because you're
Yeah,
doing amazing things. You don't have to mail that letter to your real father. It's a letter where you'd say, hey, we had such a terrific weekend together. We had so many good conversations about things. I can't wait to spend more time with you. And that letter went through 4 or 5 drafts because the first were very angry letters. And as I revised them, I began to change the tone of those letters. Now, these were letters really for me, not
yeah,
for my father. And I know, of course, I never mailed those letters. I could have, but it didn't make sense. I realized that I was the one who was going to change. This was
yeah,
not my father going to make the change. I realized my father was very narcissistic. Another book I came across, I read, and I said, oh, this answers so much. The
yeah,
confusion I've had about who he is and what he's been about is now revealed,
yeah,
very importantly. So I now have 2 fathers. I have the real father who I respect and who's given me so many gifts of discipline and moral compass and the things we were talking about a few minutes ago. But now I have this other father who makes me smile, who feels yeah, I can feel the embrace, and that's a pathway I took. I talk to people about it, especially in the case where maybe the father is now no longer available. They're either dead or they're not in communication, and you can still write those letters.
hmm,
The other very important thing that happened to me is in my late 20s, I developed a serious health issue. It's an autoimmune disease that affected my eyes. Now, without seeing very well, pressing the numbers, doing complicated transactions was
yeah,
very challenging, and those are stressful times on top of having the stress of this eye infections.
yeah,
Well, I got good medical care. We're so fortunate to be alive today as opposed to 50 years ago or
yeah,
whenever.
yeah,
Drugs and medical care. So I had the benefit of that, but I also became very grateful. I became very grateful for the fact that I could recover, that I could learn how to manage my stress better. Grateful for my wife, so supportive throughout this whole period of time, these episodes. Fortunately, my immune system is returned to sort of a normal level, so I haven't had one of these horrible eye infections in over a decade now.
oh,
So I'm
congrats,
my autoimmune immunity system is better, but also my stress management is
yeah,
a lot better. So being grateful for all of those things also helped me a lot in getting through what could have been permanently disabling.
yeah. Gratitude, Rand, is one of the most powerful forces around to reprogram one's mind and belief
Right?
system. Gratitude, because when
Yeah.
we begin to express that, it changes so much. It changes one's mood. It changes the most important thing, your attitude. And your attitude, once changed, will govern your mood and all the other things that goes there, your stress level. Your attitude um, is that piece that becomes really effective when one becomes on walk in gratitude. And when that attitude changes, man, everything changed. You look at your situation differently. There's a smile on your face. There is more, as you said, stress is not there. It's able to manage more. So, all of you that are listening, man, and you may be in some dark spaces, change your outlook, change your location,
Yeah.
put it into a space of gratitude, began to laugh. I know that I've and changed their life. So when you change your attitude, it's you're changing yourself to even the cellular level in your body, and it will manifest and change. So it's very important. Attitude plays a lot as you're moving through your life, and then you've engaged in many of these different ways by which one begins to reconnect nature, your walk with your wife, your learning about writing down, emptying out oneself with all the emotional piece. When you put those letters there, you're emptying out yourself and creating a space by which you can grow. As you're doing all of these things, right? What did you start to notice? Because it's going to lead you to your book. You're going to have to start noticing a few things, if you will, where it comes to the forefront of your thoughts. What were some of those things that you began to notice in your life? And then, it of course takes you and leads you towards the book. What were some of those things that you saw and go, wait a minute, eureka, and you started moving through? And then how did you begin to express it?
Well, I want to answer that, but I want to go back before we lose the thread. I want to mention a fantastic quote. My book has a lot of quotes, but one that is all about gratitude is, "The struggle ends when gratitude begins."
Yeah, I agree.
I just found so much energy, so much power in that quote. And part of what I've been learning to do is to learn to let go. So my life has been filled with things that I control.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of accomplishment, a lot of success in my personal life and my professional life. But there's a distinction that I make. There are four things that we control. They are your attitude, your effort, the amount of effort you're willing to put into something, your behavior, and your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a very, maybe because it's four things, like I remember four things. It's very useful, but that's different than the things you cannot control. So you do
Yeah.
not control other people. And this was a wake up call for me. About 10 years ago, when I began realizing, looking and seeing, wow, the things I control are the things I control myself, like those four. The other people, I can guide them, I can encourage them, I can be inspiring in the best way I know how, but they may not go where I'd like them to go, where I think
Mm-hmm.
they would be best to go. And I just have to let go of the fact that they did not go there, or they made a choice about something that I would not have made for them, I would not make for myself. So the process of learning to let go is it's part of being emotionally healthy.
It's a tough lesson to learn as well, guys.
Well,
Learning to
I
let go.
do this exercise, and since we're on
Mm-hmm.
video too, I'll share it with you, Ken,
Yeah,
and your
please.
listeners. Is so you hold up your fist, and you're
Mm-hmm.
holding on to something you've not been able to let go of. You really want to let go of it. It's something that happened that you're unhappy with. Maybe something you did, maybe somebody else did. Uh, and you wish you could let go of it, and you're holding so tight you can see your knuckles like that, and then you
Yeah.
turn your fist over and knuckles again, and you have not let go. But then you say, wait a minute, who's in charge here? Who's driving the vehicle down the road? I am. And you know
Yeah.
what? I'm making a choice now. It's taken me a long time, but I'm deciding right now to let go of that. And you open your hand, you wiggle your fingers and your thumb, and as you let go of the thing, your hand is lighter because you've let go. You're no longer carrying that heavy weight around with you. And so when I first discovered this thing about that I was holding on and not letting go, that I was trying to control other people, sometimes not very effectively, I
Yeah.
began doing that little exercise. And I was doing it, I don't know, several times a week maybe. Well, now, because I'm more aware of what I don't control, I do this exercise, well, whenever I need, but it could be every other month now. And but when I do it, I smile. And I realized there I
Yeah.
am again, trying to control. So letting go is a great exercise. A lot of people said, I love that exercise. I will be doing it because it works. It works.
Powerful, powerful exercise.
Getting back to your big question a minute ago, I have chosen as kind of a life purpose to continue to evolve, to become the best person I can possibly be. And that means reviewing periodically, certainly annually, but sometimes whenever something happens that puts a lot of headwind on me, I say, where do I need to grow? Where have I stumbled? And I take a look at that, and it takes honesty. I can do it by myself. I don't have to share my thoughts with anybody else, even though other people might be observing, my stumble.
Yes.
And I can say, I am committed to being a kinder person, a gentler person. I'm more willing to use my talents and skills in ways that are going to be more acceptable to others. So a little less preachy,
Yeah.
a little less dogmatic about things. So I'm on a course. The person who I am today is very different than the person I was 5 years ago, 20
Yeah.
years ago, whatever. And I am delighted with that. But part of my book also talks about evolving with soul, that we have this opportunity till the very last breath to be a better and better and better person. I think that's a very worthy thing. What you want to do is not compare yourself to another person. You want to compare yourself to your former self.
Yeah. Never compare yourself to someone else's journey. I tell them that other person has their journey. And so, lesson that you talked about, I call it compassionate detachment. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
learn that through my son. My
Mm-hmm.
son had an incident happen with him, and I would have never in a million years picked that route because I've been telling them not to pick that route. And when my son came and told me that he picked that route, I remember looking at him and I could feel everything coming inside of me to scream and yell. And all of a sudden, Rand, the thought, like the words, someone said it in my mind, compassionate detachment. And I was like, thinking to myself, what the heck is that? And I remember just holding my peace with my son, and I just simply said, I love you. Everything is going to be okay. And I remember went back into my meditative state, my world, to get some understanding about what does this mean. And when I began to see the revelation and the beauty of it, it was one of the most painful lessons that I had to learn. I had to love my son, have compassion for him, but be detached of the situation and the fact that he has made this decision and allow him the opportunity to experience whatever that is. And I would tell them, from this experience I learned, and I would tell them, I said, my hope as a father is not that you don't get into trouble or thing like that. My hope as a father is that you don't stay there a minute, a second longer than you need to be there. We all need to go through something to form and to create and to grow. But my hope as an individual is that those that are listening, that you are not there a second longer. And I have someone, and he has written this book to help you so that you don't have to be there a second more than you need to. And that's Thriving, how to create a healthier, happy, and more prosperous life. And who doesn't want that? But it comes at a cost. And that cost of that is one must relinquish all of the old belief system that you have and engross yourself in the new data. And that data is in Rand's book. And we're going to provide all of his links and everything so that you guys can get to him. I've been trying to tell all my listeners, form these clubs with your friends, book clubs. Get books and read. Challenge each other. Stop, wasting money and going and buy beer and stuff like that. Get yourself a bunch of buddies and start looking about growing the self and becoming more, and so that you can hold each other accountable as you're
Mm.
moving through. And again, I have Rand's book, and I want you guys to buy the book, give it to presents of mom and dad and brothers and sisters, um, and so that they can come out from their pain. This is all what we do here at Threads, is to assist you to move from your pain to get into your freedom, where you.
Ken, thank you. I so much appreciate our conversation and what we've talked about. I can't believe it's been an hour.
It has been, and most people don't. I don't even can't believe it myself. But again, because when you're sharing and knowledge, insights, and these things that we know will help and assist others out, um, we don't even look at the time. Sometimes you don't even know the conversation is so rich, if you will. And so it has been a rich one. Chatting
Okay.
with you, Rand,
Thank you.
really has.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome, sir, and you have a great day.
Well, and you, I wish you continuing success. I'm so pleased that you're a podcast host. This
Thank you
is
so
really
much.
important work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.